This gives a total outlet of 204 service points, and the odd Tipperary farmer who can't get as far as any of those can always send for his book by post. This vast, complex organisation is run by a staff of 22 people, headed by the county librarian, Dan Kinane.
Well, I came from National Library back in 1952, here as assistant librarian, and took over as county librarian in 1954.
Well, 625,000 books a year seems a terrible lot to me, Dan. Does that indicate anything exceptional about the Tipperary people?
Well, I wouldn't think so, because the people in other counties are no different to the people of Tipperary in their desire for books and for reading.
What kind of books do the people go for in general, Dan?
Well, fiction, of course, that's the most widely used of the literary field. Well, you've got detective, cowboys, historical novels. The ladies are very, very fond of those. Well, then in the non-fiction field, biography, travel, and do-it-yourself has become very, very popular, particularly in the last couple of years.
Have you noticed any change in the tendency of the reading habits of the people?
Well, yes. There has been a marked swing over to non-fiction in the last, I would say, 5 years. And with the advent of television, we have found that the requests have become more specific. People see a program or something like that on television, they come in and they ask for the book on the subject which they have seen on television.
Well, within the county itself, is there any part of the county goes for a particular line?
Yes, in South Tipperary, you have quite an amount of non-fiction read, say, compared with North Tip, where fiction is more popular with the country people.
Would you have any possible explanation for that?
None whatsoever. I'd say it's just a question of taste.
How do you see the library? What role do you see it play in the rural community?
Well, the library can play quite an important part in community affairs. First of all, in the field of education. I mean, I think very strongly about this, that the library has got quite an important role to play in the education.
Have you got library in schools?
Well, we have. We've got about 126 in national schools and about 6 in secondary schools. And we've been developing those. We've got quite a few more to do, but each year we get a few new centres going in the schools.
Dermot Foley, director of An Chomhairle Leabharlanna, was visiting Tipperary when we were filming there. Dermot, could you tell me what's the function of your council in the library movement?
Well, the council is first of all a state-appointed body, and it advises the minister on the improvements that we would suggest for the libraries in the country. It also advises the local authorities. There is a very close relationship between the council and all the library authorities in the country.
Well, you move around the country a considerable amount. Are you happy with the state of enthusiasm for reading at the moment?
I'm happy that the time is ripe for a good organisation of the libraries throughout the country. The people are ready for it, and everything points towards it being a success.
Well, Tipperary here has a fine record, a wonderful record of reading. Is it as good in other parts of the country?
In places, yes. We don't really compare between one place and another, although Tipperary is recognised as being very good indeed, and I found it so when I was during my visit in the last couple of days. But, you see, the enthusiasm is there, but the organisation hasn't been there all the time, and it's our business to bring up that organisation. We've no doubt at all that people want this.
Well, are there any particular developments which you think is leading to improved reading?
There are many, but the one that comes to my mind immediately is the Minister for Education scheme of a year or two ago. And that is one where he's putting in books at the expense of the department into the primary schools. And this has stimulated the children enormously and the teachers. And it'll be only a couple of years' time when these children will be going into the libraries as adults. And that's going to reflect very remarkably on the work that's done in the libraries.
This mobile unit is very useful for bringing the books around to the people. Do you find it throughout the country very much?
Not as much as we would like, but then compared to what it was 10 years ago, it's remarkable. And this small van here is an example of what the Library Council hopes that local authorities will do. That is bringing the books to the people in the rural areas and giving them as good a service as they will get, we'll say, in the town of Tipperary or Cork or wherever it may be. There are several authorities in the country have got these vans already. Cork itself has just bought its 5th van. And there is one in Longford Westmeath, there's one in Galway, there are 2 in Monaghan, and there are other people contemplating getting it. And we like to see this sort of progress.
Do you find any pattern of reading manifesting itself throughout the country? Say in one part of the country, the west or the east, they go in for any kind of reading?
No. Industry, for instance, will influence to some extent the reading of a locality. We're very interested to find that young people in industry and older people too are turning to the libraries for literature which will help them. And as you know yourself here in Tipperary, the farmer is doing that in to a much greater degree nowadays than before. But I wouldn't say that there is a particular pattern. The remarkable thing is that the enthusiasm is there, and the people now are accepting the library as a normal part of self-education as well as formal education.
Someone has to provide the money for this service. I asked Jack Murphy, chairman of the Libraries Committee, if they thought they were getting value for that money.
Oh yes, I think we're getting very good value for our money. As a matter of fact, the proof of it is the service has been so widely availed of. Not alone in our permanent services, but in our non-permanent, shall we say, small libraries and with our mobile unit. Added to that, there are times when we are inundated with inquiries from all over the country and about specific jobs, specific things that have to be done.
I think you loaned some books to UCD on one occasion.
We did. We loaned them to very many. As a matter of fact, we had an inquiry one time from a ship in the Mediterranean, which we were able to supply.
625,000 books a year from Homer to Ian Fleming. That's the story of reading in Tipperary, in the towns, villages and farms. And I'm glad to say that still proudly holding its place is the Bible of Tipperary, Knock na Gao. As Mary says in the last paragraph, thank God there are happy homes in Tipperary still.